The State of Freedom is a listener-supported podcast. We're committed to pursuing the truth about policymaking, decisions, and situations in Louisiana and at the national level that stand to impact our freedoms.
Please become a monthly supporter of the State of Freedom at freedomstate.us as we continue to expand the voice of liberty across Louisiana and beyond.
Sorry about that. I'm still getting the hang of this, but joining us today is a man who needs no introduction to our audience. Joe Hoft is a friend of the show and a patriot I might add, who has told us in all modesty that he does have more hair and more teeth than all of our nation's original patriots. And Joe, I'm pretty sure you would back me up when I say that this happy and healthy fact is in no way to be construed as a result or positive benefit of Obamacare.
That's the truth.
Well, look, before we get into the conversation with Joe, let me read the scripture of the day. We're here to have fun today, guys. All right. The scripture today is 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 3-4. And it says, "Our coming alongside you to encourage you was not out of some delusion or impure motive or intention to mislead you, but we've been approved by God to be those who preach the gospel. So our motivation to preach is not pleasing people, but pleasing God, who thoroughly examines our hearts." And Paul wrote this letter to the Thessalonians, and it's a great instruction for us, regardless of where the Lord has called us to work. Obviously, he was preaching the gospel, but our motivation to do whatever it is the Lord has called us to do, whether it's to teach, raise children, help patients, design bridges, repair pipelines, edit manuscripts, whatever it is that the Lord has uniquely skilled us and called us to do, our motivation should be not to please people, but to please God. He's the only one who can accurately examine, judge, and refine our hearts. And if we work with an attitude of serving the Lord and answering to the Lord, the opinions of people start to really fade in significance. And I think that's when we can really do something great.
You know, Danielle, that's a beautiful prayer, and I can tell you just based on my own experience in life, and I have been a victim of this as well. To make decisions too often based upon how you will be perceived by others, what other people are going to
Yeah.
say and do, or how they're going to evaluate you, whether you're going to be attacked. And so it is a daily effort to come to a point where we really are detached from what other people think about what we say and what we do, and that we are truly focused on trying to please the Lord. And it is a daily commitment, because the natural tendency is to look and see how you're going to be perceived. Nobody wants to be hated. Nobody wants to be rejected. Nobody wants to be talked badly about. But you know what? When you're standing up for the truth and you're moving forward in righteousness, that is an inevitable part of the terrain. And we have to know that and accept that. And we
Yeah.
do,
And Chris, sorry to interrupt you, but as I was thinking about this morning, I was trying to think about someone who did something really great, who fell victim to what people think. And there's not that many people you can think of who did something, stood up in greatness, who were held by the entrapment of caring about what other people think.
Yeah. And our guest today, Joe Hoft, who has been a regular guest on the State of Freedom now, is a textbook example of someone who speaks the truth and goes forward in courage. Can you imagine if Joe Hoft woke up every morning and based his daily decisions on how other people are going to perceive them or whether or not he's going to be attacked? He would never do anything because he's attacked constantly, he and other patriots, many of them. But Joe, as always, as you know, what a pleasure to have you with us today, sir.
Well, thanks so much. And speaking about appearance, the comment you made earlier, Danielle. So Chris offered for me to come on again. I was obviously thrilled, happy to be here. And he said, "Joe, you're a great American. I'd put you right behind John Adams." And I had to respond, "Well, John Adams lost all his hair and had no teeth by the time he was done. So is that where I'm at?" So the appearance. Well, at least I'm better than that, right?
Yeah.
Got my teeth.
Much better than that.
Yeah, maybe that'll be one of the few dissimilarities between you and Joe. Joe, we got to get into this issue about these drones. It is. They seem to be all over the place. Are these drones that everybody is seeing and reporting? Are these just a distraction from other nefarious activities that the deep state is trying to engage in leading up to Trump's inauguration? Is this a real national security threat? Is it an effort to undermine Trump? What is your appreciation of these drones?
Great question. Everybody's talking about it. It's amazing, which may be exactly what those flying these drones want. They want us all to talk about it. They want that seems pretty clear. And I guess the other thing that hit me too, talking to like Jim about it yesterday, is that my twin brother Jim with Gateway Pundit, was that Trump comes out and says shoot him down, and that was a couple nights ago now, maybe 3 nights. So that indicates that he's not in on it. Because he's telling shoot these things down. And so, unless he's playing some game, but we don't know Trump to really play games. He's been honest and upright, and that's why we voted him in such a massive election win here. So Trump's not involved. So now, okay, that adds a whole, now picture to this whole thing. We've got massive media pressure talking about this. It's all over social media. And then we've got Trump doesn't know.
Yeah.
And then so what we've heard, some of these great pieces over the weekend, people, assessing what's going on. And then a couple of these drone, one guy who was a CEO of a drone manufacturer out of Wichita says, well, it appears to me that they are looking for something. That's what's going on. So then we hear this narrative. It's not the drones that are the problem. They're looking for something else that is a problem. So then that brings up theories of what could it be, a nuke? Seems like the big target item now. And yesterday, as I was talking to somebody, and as I looked at that, I thought, man, this reminds me of the movie the Sum of All Fears. Right?
Exactly what I was telling Chris this morning.
Did you say that?
I did, yeah.
Yeah. And so it's something, exactly. So what's going on? Maybe they're preparing us, the deep state, because they're not telling Trump, but they're going to prepare us for a massive bomb or nuke or something terrible. And then they're going to blame it on Russia, and then get us in a world war. And so,
I'm ready for the Nissan Dorma. The scene at the end where where all the bad guys get their throats slit. That's the part that we're waiting for.
Well, yeah, absolutely. It's funny because I looked up the quotes on that movie, and they said that it was like some neo-Nazis get a hold of a nuke, bring it to the U.S., and then blow things up and try to pin it against Russia. Well, let's see. Ukraine, neo-Nazis. Okay, we found that out right away. I think we were the first to report at Gateway Pundit about, hey, there's this faction of individuals to the eastern part of the country that are neo-Nazis. And they even have swastikas and stuff on their uniforms. These people are neo-Nazis. And so wouldn't that be something that they're tying now neo-Nazis, just like the movie. It's like they needed a story, so they went back, grabbed a movie, and decided to use that. So they're not very creative, are they?
Joe, if this were, they're not creative at all. If this were a genuine national security threat, and Danielle, we're talking about this earlier as well, is it reasonable to assume that Trump or the incoming administration would have been briefed on this?
Well, that's it. That's the point. If Trump's saying shoot him down, that indicates he's not in on it.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, it could, here's the problem. I was actually on a radio show out of St. Louis this morning and kind of, laid this out too. When they lie and they lie and they lie to you, eventually, we Americans they're good people and have had our great integrity, taken from us through their lies and lies and lies, their gaslighting. You just don't believe them anymore. So this is where they've gotten us. We've gotten to the point with whether it's be election results where nobody believes the results, certainly in some areas, and then you've got the deep state and lawfare and corrupt judges, and so we've been told all these lies. So if let's say it really was, let's say this pans out, it really was some people trying to maybe it was Russia. Maybe Russia sends a nuke over here and blows us up. Nobody's going to believe it because of the damage these guys have caused, to our country.
Yeah. They've cried Chicken Little. What, Joe, what should we be focused on right now then? I mean, the deep state basically manages what sucks up the airwaves. That's my view, at least. Whatever's the main source of public attention seems like a shiny object, like a drone, or if they want us to believe it's a UFO with aliens coming to abduct us all. Um, my guess is between now and the inauguration, there's going to be no shortage of these crazy things happening to distract us. Are they distracting us away from the contesting of election certifications, especially on the down ballot? They're
Mm,
distracting us away from Biden's pardons, from the executive orders he may be putting out in these waning moments. I think
mm,
there where should we keep our focus right now?
mm. That too is a great question, and that's what this we've been battling now for how many years? It's the this look here squirrel running out of the woods where the woods, the forest is on fire. you know let's look at a squirrel, and that's what we do often. I think that's one of their tactics, try to get us focused on some stupid stuff that maybe isn't even real. And so I think, yeah, first thing we got to do is stay strong and stay focused on the truth. There are certain things we know are true. We could see it with our own eyes. For example, in the election, Trump was going to run away with this. Kamala was an idiot and relatively unliked by almost everybody. And so that was a sham. And then it turns out later that, yeah, indeed, even their poll numbers showed her behind. So, and the media was pushing. Remember, there was one poll coming out of Iowa right before the election. This lady gave Kamala a huge lead, like 12%, like 3%. Trump wins by 12%. This lady was off by 15%.
Yeah.
And, so the polls is a big tool that they use that is garbage. So I'd say with polls, I'd pretty much say don't really look at them, or look at them with some sort of lens that really takes into consideration their lies. We did that in 2016 with Hillary. We picked Trump to beat Hillary because we started looking at the polls and we dissected them. And we could see that they're using 55 Dems to 45 Republicans, and Hillary's got a 51% lead. Well, that tells me actually that she's not that popular. She, if the numbers are consistent, then Trump would be ahead. So, or equal. So. We learned that. We learned the polls were bogus. In 2020, we couldn't rely on the polls. The things we did rely on in 2016 was like social media. We could see number of hits, number of shares. Trump was crushing Hillary, and he still is. He's the greatest, really, individual ever on social media. Just amazing stuff. I was just think about this tweet's going around now. Trump tweeted this, or truthed it, during the Fani Willis hearing. There was a trial basically looking into her and what she was doing, during and before that case, especially her boyfriend. Trump tweets out this video where her boyfriend, they asked him if he and her ever went to this house in the woods or whatever and hung out, for a period of time. And he pauses and he looks up, and Trump puts this caption of Fani Willis in like a bathing suit in all these poses. It was absolutely hilarious. And think of the guts to do that. These people are going after him, and he makes fun of them. And here's the thing too. If you want to destroy somebody, get people to laugh at them. You won. It's over. They become comics. And that was devastating. Now we're looking back this weekend. It comes out that Fani Willis's boyfriend indeed was working with the White House multiple times and really probably taking orders from them. So, Trump has the guts to get that stuff out there. Anyways, in 2016, we could use social media. In 2020, we couldn't, because they shut everything down and shadow banned everybody. So we couldn't use that tool anymore. But rallies, we always could. And when you see Trump getting 100,000 people in Coachella in California, in New Jersey, in wherever it might be, and you see Kamala with 3,000 over 4,000 people coming in that have been at her last rally, she's
paying.
Yeah, they're busting them in. So we knew. You can tell that these numbers, it's all a lie. They continue to produce, and unfortunately, I think Trump was so much bigger than that. And And we had a
Joe,
miracle. Yeah, go ahead.
why do you think it is that, well, a couple parts here. Why do you think it is that Trump himself was able to make it too big to rig, and yet some of these down ballot races, California, Colorado, some of these House races, where it looks now that if these things go the way it looks like they may go, we may end up with a 217 to 215 majority in the House, which is razor thin. What talk about the certification issues in California and Colorado, and I believe aren't those being protested by some of the local officials?
Well, great question. But first of all, let me just answer that. Why did Trump win?
Yeah.
It was a miracle. And we all saw it. It was on TV. We saw it. He gets shot and he happens at the very last second to move his head in a peculiar position as he's looking behind the screen. And that bullet whizzes by and hits his ear instead of his, his head. And I was at an event a couple of weeks ago. This gentleman walks in. He's a great golfer, older man, a pro. And he sat down next to me. He said, well, we all knew Trump was going to win, when on that day, when the miracle happened, we knew God was on his side.
Yeah. I've had people tell me that too. Yeah.
Isn't that true? And it's him standing up then and saying, fight, fight, fight. Right after that, then that ignited Elon Musk for him to say, that's who I want as my president. I don't care anymore. This is who I want. This guy that gets shot and stands up and says, fight, fight, fight. And then you've got the greatest Kennedy alive jumping on board. And then the list goes on and on and on. It's just unbelievable. And if you did look back 6 months ago and somebody said to you, Joe, here's the deal. Trump's going to win in a landslide. And Elon Musk is going to be his buddy. They're with each other all the time. And he's a big supporter of Trump. They become great friends. And they are going to make major changes to this country in a good way, in a way that should have been done for the last century. You'd say hallelujah, So it is a miracle. It's a miracle. And so Trump did get so many votes because everybody could see it. It was something spiritual. God intervened and saved the day, saved this country, saved this earth. I'll tell you this too, just while I'm on that. I've talked to a good friend. And I've thought this. I thought, man, Trump's going to 2,000 years from now, there'll be a Shakespeare writing, a play about the Trump story. It's so magical. It's this beautiful family billionaire came out of nowhere, beats the evil Hillary. She sets him up. You got Russia collusion. You got 2 impeachments. They steal his election. They set up his followers. They go to prison. Then they try to throw Trump in prison. And then as that doesn't work and their efforts to, these evil efforts to get him fail, they try to shoot him. And he survives all that and wins amazing, this is fairy tale stuff.
It is an extraordinary story. Yeah.
Isn't it? And this one person said to me, I rank him not just as a legend, as one of the top 5 people in history. She said, I see Napoleon, David, Trump, and a few others. It's like, this is amazing, but you can't argue that. This is what we're living through. So for me, as I focus on that, I'm happy and I'm gracious and I'm grateful. And also seeing Trump say, fight, fight, fight encourages me to do everything I can to push forward with the truth. So, so anyways, getting to your second part of the question about, these elections. Well, we could spend some time talking about California, if you don't mind, because I've been looking into it for the last week and then some. And as you know, I've written 3 books on the 2020 election, Behind Me, the Steal. And that really helped. That plus decades of work in corporate, where I was overseeing at one point a multi-billion-dollar block of business in Asia Pacific, multiple countries, languages, legal entities, very complex block of business. It was my job to ensure the financials were absolutely perfect. Big job. And there's a lot that goes into that in our corporate world. And this is maybe a key point about everything I'm going to say here, is that in the corporate world, everything has to be perfect. You've got to make sure there's support for every entry. You got to make sure that The processes are totally accurate due to Sarbanes-Oxley. You got to make sure your systems are perfect. Everything has to be perfect. So when the auditors come in and look at your stuff, there are no questions. You don't hide a damn thing. If you were caught at the corporation, the Fortune 500 firm I worked at, hiding something or something, you'd be done. That'd be it. You got to have trust. And that's the beauty about this country. A big part. We have so much integrity and trust, and these animals want to destroy that. These monsters. That is what this country's built on. It's integrity. It's all that, and they want to destroy it. And they've done a damn good job. Thankfully, God intervened here, and we've got Trump back, where we can start just hammering these monsters. So that's really important. So as you look at elections, then, and then I spent years in doing audits. And here's a thing I've been saying a lot lately. I can't remember if I shared this last time I was on. But I've done audits in communist China, and I've had these people, I ask them for something, they give it to me. They gave it to me now. It was accurate. It supported their numbers or whatever I was looking at. Not a problem. In our U.S. elections process, the processes are totally broken. The numbers are terrible. They suck. They have there's no reality because the processes are broke. Systems are broke. There's no integrity. The people that are signing off on this are in some cases likely criminals, like that Secretary of State in Colorado, Griswold. So that's the difference. And yet we're treating these elections like they're just as certifiable as our financials. They're not. They're not.
And Joe, just to add to your point, when in corporate, if you are caught with mistakes, that's bad and you're done. But if you're caught lying on your numbers, that's criminal. I mean, it may be criminal to have a mistake. Look what they've done. Look what they tried to do to Trump, who was like 20 football fields away from his financials.
Right.
So just to make the point that our election system, how much more sacred should our election system be?
Well, it's night and day, really, with the real world. I'll call the real world the corporate world. So yeah, and like even in doing business in communist China, they're more transparent than what we're getting in most locations around the country. So I started looking into California, especially a week ago, and I had this lady send me this stuff. I didn't really understand what she was sharing with me. She's not an accountant or an auditor or anything, a housewife. And she sent me this stuff, and it's kind of hard to even figure out. And had a discussion with these guys in Bannon, and Bannon said, "Joe, look into this stuff." So I did, and on a week ago Sunday, I spent probably 6 hours looking into this. I started saying, she's right. And what we were looking at is Orange County. Now, Orange County is a massive county in California. It has roughly 2 million voters. The whole state has 22 million. So it's a pretty good chunk. It's just south of LA. It has 6 U.S. House seats. And it's conservative. It's red. It's always been red, super red. And yet all of a sudden, when they put in drop boxes and ballot harvesting in 2018, all of a sudden they lost these seats to Dems. And so this election comes around. And as we all saw after the election, days after the election, 3 GOP-led seats on election day flipped to the Dems. And like people say, they always flip Dem. They never flip red. Mm-hmm. And so what happened is 5 out of the 6 seats in Orange County go to the Republicans, like you said, the down ballot votes. So we started looking at this. First thing is high level, in order to look at high level numbers. And you'd say, just like anybody, you'd say, well, this doesn't make sense. Kamala beats Trump in a conservative county. The same conservative county voted 76% to get rid of the law that says it's okay to commit a theft up until $1,000. Well, they said, no, we don't want that anymore. And they voted against that. So the same people voted for Kamala. Yeah. Steve Garvey ran for Senate, and he beat Adam Schiff in that county. And yet he had more votes than Trump. So some of these things don't make sense. And so what's really going on in that county? So then if you look at the process, we started saying, well, here's what happened. One thing that was really peculiar was days after the election on that Friday night, as they're still counting in their facility in Orange County, there was a bomb threat. And so they shut down operations about, they say, around 6:45 at night. They kicked everybody out and they shut down the live stream. Now, I've talked to law enforcement who said that's the last thing you would do is shut down that live stream. It's going to help you save lives. They risked people's lives by shutting that thing down. And so what happened then is after that point in time, surprisingly, 3 U.S. House seats turned blue.
Yeah.
So, and now here's the bigger question, and probably the biggest red flag is that it's forgotten. There's no more discussion on that bomb threat since that night. The mainstream media has been told not to report on it clearly because they just follow the lead, and nobody else is talking about it, but we are.
It was so Joe, you're saying it was a manufactured distraction.
It's a new water leak.
The new water leak. Well said.
That's right.
Did you say, Joe, that did you mean to say that 5 out of the 6 House seats from Orange County ended up going Democrat?
Yes, yeah. If I misstated that,
okay.
Sorry. Thanks for correcting that.
No problem. So that's the difference right there in the Republican majority in the House.
Well, think about it. What if you added 5 more Republican seats? It'd be 225 right now to 210. Now that's a much better majority than the 215, 220 or whatever it is right now.
Right now, yeah.
So it's like, well, yeah, and where? Wait until what GOP's reaction to all this was. I'll finish kind of saying. So we jumped into the process. This whole thing about the live streams a nightmare. You're like, and they come back with some bogus, to me, bogus responses. Well, the probably the most after days, and now it's a month since the bomb threat. They said, well, the sheriff shut it down. That's who shut it down. So, well, then somebody needs to be talking to that sheriff. Why did you do that? Because you just put your citizens' lives in danger. And then they say, yeah, we've got another system there that's on all the time. Well, okay, well, clearly it's not good enough to validate and to oversee the ballot process because you have a separate system for that. And then they tell us, well, we shut it down at the ballot system every night and that we don't record it. So there's no recording of this live stream at all. So, and it's shut down at night. So again, now we've got more holes. As an auditor, I'd say, well, there's some challenges here. There's no reason. It doesn't cost a lot of money to keep those cameras rolling, probably very, very little bit. Why don't you keep them going so that you don't have a question from people like us that don't trust your results? Just give us, that, and this is the kind of things that add up. After a period of time, you have to say this is bogus. So the other point that we noted a week ago about Orange County was that they had, as we look through these numbers, they had 300,000 more ballots go out than they had registered voters. So there's like 1.8 million registered voters, 2.1 million ballots went out. Well, how can you do that? You know what I mean? How can you do that?
You can only do it if you are making it criminal to ask someone for an ID.
Well, absolutely. And so their response to that was, these extra 300,000, 320,000, whatever the number was. Well, that's because that's people that came in and voted. And so we send everybody a ballot, but then if they come in, we give them a ballot too. So then that, to me, I'm like, at the time I think, well, that makes it worse.
Yeah.
Because you need to control this. How the heck are you controlling it?
So you have so at a minimum, you have 300,000 ballots floating around out there, which seems to me, if they get into the wrong hands, you're looking at major fraud.
Well, that's it. And they want to say that they can control this through these poll pads. Well, we've seen the poll pads in Missouri where people voted already, and they then go in and to test it, and some of these workers, they found out no, it didn't stop them from voting again. So and they say, and then we will arrest people and bring them to the throw them in prison. Well, how many people have you arrested for a duplicate ballot over the last probably 10 years? I bet it's close to zero. And so it doesn't add up, folks. It doesn't add up. The system that you're using is broke. Again, the process is broke. As a corporate auditor, I'd time out here. big red flag. We're not going to, this is just one area. So then the other thing was 300,000 ballots that were counted more than received. And then they said, well, it's because your query you ran is wrong off our system. It's really the same amount that was the total. And we said, so we went and ran the query based on that information we received, and it's the same number that we had previously. So then they come back and tell us, there's a flaw in our system. We've got a glitch. So this is how we're supposed to deal with these clowns. And then the thing that really grabbed me, and the piece about that really grabbed me, was that the GOP in the state comes in, they say that we sent an attorney. They don't publish this. They send it in an email to apparently their clients, because about 3 people sent me this letter. And the letter is basically repeating the rebuttal from the election worker who runs the county's office, the registrar of voters. So that frustrates me. It's like the GOP should be standing up for anybody that's challenging these numbers, especially if you lost 5 out of 6 House seats when you shouldn't have lost 1. You should be challenging this. You shouldn't be siding with them. So that tells us we got a bunch of rhinos. And if you talk to people there, a bunch of people running the GOP that are not on our side. Yeah. So big, huge deal there and across the country. I'll pause there a moment, but if not, I can tell you about this story today.
It's
so go
true.
ahead.
Our mutual friend Matt Meck would tell us that almost all of the state GOPs are controlled in some way by people who are not conservative in any way, shape, or form. In fact, a lot of them are never Trumpers or are Trumpers whenever it's convenient for them.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely, absolutely. Whether it be Louisiana, Missouri, Florida, wherever it might be, we're hearing the same story. These people are not on our side. And they would be the same people, I'm telling you, that would have backed DeSantis. There's a litmus test. Yeah. They're backing DeSantis. They're not on our side. Everybody knew that the Trump election 2020 was stolen. I've written about it. And my thesis is, and it comes up to this in my summary, it's because it never should have been certified. Because everything was broke. Because as an auditor, professional auditor, done audits around the world, including in communist China, India, Malaysia, Australia, UK, Canada, US, South America, it doesn't matter. People provide information, it's accurate, and you never would have certified this election. Nobody in their right mind. And that's the problem. It was certified. And now we just see that again last night in California, or Friday, they certified that election. And so my points today, I don't know, Danielle, you got a question?
Well, I just want to kind of tag on to that. So, we know that Trump believes that there was fraud in the 2020 election because he never conceded. And his self-proclaimed plan for this election was called Too Big to Rig, which is basically saying, we know you're committing fraud in so many places, but we're just going to overwhelm the cheat. So do you think that, here we are, we've lived through another fraudulent election. Yes, we got the man on top, and we have the mandate, but we're much weaker in the down ballot, just as a lot of people predicted, because the core issues were never properly addressed. Right. So do you think that we're going to get some kind of justice here? Do you think that there will be some meaningful investigation to uncover this and put these people behind bars? And put the people who deserve to be in the seats because of the will of the voters?
Well, I tell you, those are great questions. I think you're absolutely right, though. It has to be addressed. And I like the idea of going back, like you said, we should not. And that's the point of my piece this morning. They certified an election in California, and it's uncertifiable. There's no way that and I say this in there, that an auditor of integrity that's done audits around the world, CPA, MBA, CISA, which is a certified information systems auditing. There's no way that a man or woman with that background would have certified this election. It's so broke. Yeah. And so we have to fix this stuff. And California is really probably maybe the worst. It's a beautiful state. It's big. We all know, just great place, lots of people, but it's broke. And so when we look at the elections this morning, the things that that the first thing you got to address is their voter rolls. Okay. Yeah. And so these guys sent me this analysis they did, And I started looking at it and I'm like, man, they are spot on. And what they did is they looked at the number of people being added to the voter rolls over the last decade or so. You can see this number rocket up over the last 4 or 5 years. And then they are able to determine from the information that's provided whether the individual was born in the U.S. or born out of country. Well, the number of born out of country voters that are being added to the voter rolls is huge. And then they compared that to actual number of people that have become citizens in California over the same time period. And that line's way down here. So the difference between these voters that are being added that were born outside the country and the individuals that have been added to that have become U.S. citizens, it's like 4 million people over the last 4 or 5 years have been added to the voter rolls. It's actually like 3.7, 3.8 million added to the voter rolls that they're not Americans, they're illegals. They're
Joe,
period.
I would love for you to overlay that with the number of people who are not born here that are voting but not paying taxes. I bet those numbers are completely inverse.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. Or voting and getting paid for by the U.S. government.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Worse than that.
What?
Worse than that.
Even more nefarious. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, Joe, you think there are, if I'm understanding this correctly, the 3.8 million or so that they find who were not born in the U.S. What percentage of those are illegally on the voter rolls in California? Is it 1 million? Well,
No, it's all of them.
All of them.
Because there's more than that have been added to the voter rolls that are born outside the country. The problem is when you subtract those that have become citizens, you're still left with 3.8 million.
So 3.8 million is the net, and so those people clearly are illegally on the voter rolls in California.
Clearly, and what happened was in California they have this thing called motor voter. That's the name they've given it. Where you go in, you get a license, and you are automatically added to their voter rolls. They don't care if you're a citizen or not. Your name's going to the voter rolls, and that's why these things are shooting like this. Their voter rolls since the advent of that program. And so it's very clear that they have millions on their, in their voter roll. Their voter roll is like 22 million. So that's about 17% of all their voter roll inventory is non-voters. Now, and we can talk about, I've talked to some other people about this morning. Are they voting? Probably not. I would guess they're not. If you talk to people that know illegals here, they're not going to do anything to jeopardize their existence here because they're making money, sending it back home overseas or to South America, or wherever it might be, and they don't want to lose that job, so they're not voting. So that tells you something too. Who's voting for these people?
Right.
Exactly. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And they also said in Orange County they had 76% voter turnout. I'm like, that is massively high. How does that happen? Well, it's because you got to manufacture a lot of votes to overcome the Trump effect.
Yes.
And so that's
and Joe, that goes back. I've always said this, people, even conservatives say all of these millions and millions of illegal immigrants who pouring into our country, we don't know where they are. We don't know who there are. I guarantee you, and I've always contended this, that these Democratic operatives know who they are. They know where they are. They know their identity. I promise you, because they expropriate that identity to do just what you just said, to manufacture votes on their behalf. And if you were to ask these illegal aliens about it, of course, and they answered honestly, they say, of course we didn't vote. I don't want to have to get kicked out of the country.
Right. I'm making money here.
Yeah. But somebody's voting for them. But I want to ask you this question, Joe, because it's so important, I think. In fact, I've said that I think the Kash Patel nominee is probably certainly among the top most important nominees in the new Trump administration. You have been a victim of the systematic weaponization of the justice system. You felt it firsthand. Do you like Kash Patel? Do you think he will deliver some real accountability to these bad actors specifically? And do you think he'll clean up what is obviously a very, very corrupt, politically dominated system?
Yeah. No, thanks, Chris. Let me just close out that discussion on California. Two other couple points I wanted to mention, and then I'll mention that, and then we'll talk about cash. The other thing is they have the drop boxes, ballot harvesting. They're dropping millions of, millions. They're dropping I'm hearing hundreds of ballots in at a time. We don't know where they're coming from. And then the other thing I found out is that they're not doing signature verification, so we don't know who they're coming from. And then you've got these bomb threats. The whole thing's a mess in California just because of those. Not even talking about systems or the chain of custody on the rest. The system's broken, never should be certified. That's where you'd end as an auditor. I'm sorry, you can't have 20% of your inventory of ballots or of registered voters being illegal. Not citizen. You wouldn't do it. You'd have to move on.
Do you think California went red this time?
Oh, probably. Yeah. Well, you saw it even in the House seats. They switched a lot to the red. So, absolutely, I think the whole country was. I think it was beyond a landslide, and that's what they've been doing these last few month or so to try to cover it up as much as they could with garbage ballots while nobody's looking. So so there's that. But Kash Patel, you know what? Here's what I think, Chris. When I guess I really like Kash. Everything I've seen about the guy seemed to be pretty good. The thing that I don't like is how you've got these U.S. senators like Murkowski and Joni Ernst and stuff saying that they know better than Trump who should be on his candidate. I want to scream when I hear that. Who are you? Who are you to suggest that you know better than Trump for his candidacy? And by the way, Lindsey Graham used to say, "I'm gonna pass everybody," and so he'd always pass through these corrupt, garbage judges that never should be overseeing our courts, shoving them around this country where they can just do their damage. And yet he was one of the first people to come out against the Trump's pick for the Defense Department.
Yeah. So Joe, Lindsey Graham, probably my second or third least favorite political personality in the country. He will give a corrupt Democrat government his full prerogative to get his picks through and vote for them and support him because he's the president and he has the right to make his picks, but he's not willing to give the same deference and the same degree of accommodation to President Trump. And I find that just is infuriating.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? You raise a point there. If we were to list our most unfavorable politicians today, I mean, probably Pelosi and Adam Schiff, Biden, Obama. You could fill it up with Democrats easily. But how many would be Republicans? How many would be Liz Cheney and Lindsey Graham and these people that are just McConnell? I mean, that have done so much damage to this country as well.
So much damage. And this point I have to make also, Joe, and I think that they're even more culpable. I think it's even more reprehensible because at least Democrats state openly and candidly where they are, what they stand for, and you know who your enemy is. Half the time, these rhino Republicans are misdirecting. They're couching things in language that you might be able to interpret as being supportive of President Trump, but then they do something over here that undermines him. So you never really know where they're coming from or where they stand. And I find that even more damaging.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and secret. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Daniel.
I was just going to say, but I think they've made themselves very, very naked in this process.
Certainly, in recent months, for sure.
Well, and that was the beauty, and that's the brilliance and the holiness behind Trump. So much of this stuff has been uncovered. We had no clue. Him losing that election, we get him for another 4 years. We are blessed. This guy now 12 years. He won 3 elections, and it's, but the things that we uncovered, because of this guy. I don't think he meant to or wanted to. It's just that it happened. All of a sudden, red light here, red light here, red light here. Everything is broken. And so, and then at the same time, here he has this team that's come in like Elon Musk, that it's like, this guy's they're doing this for free. They're trying to help. They're bringing in other billionaires that are doing this stuff for free. Yeah. It's really, we're really being blessed.
Yeah. But Joe, can Patel deliver? Will he deliver?
Well, I don't, it's a great question because I just think you're going to absolutely need some absolute bulldog. And he's going to need a team around him. And lots of work to do. But can he? I think he can do a great job because he's got Elon Musk on one side and Bobby Kennedy Jr. on the other. Hopefully Pam Bondi will be strong enough. I worry about that. There's questions with some of these people for sure. I'm not going to discount that, but and there's been at least one guy that he got rid of, and this is the unique thing too. The guy who was the DEA, what was he, director of
Drug Enforcement Agency?
Drug Enforcement Agency, a sheriff down here in Tampa. He apparently has a horrible record. He's a big lefty. He's donated to Obama. And somehow he made it through the cracks. And then they announced that he resigned. He on his own prerogative decided to step down. And Trump came out the next day and said, no, I fired this guy. He's not coming on the team. So that again gives us a clue that something's happening behind the scenes, that people aren't being honest here about what Trump's doing. And I really hope and pray that he takes care of this time and just gets rid of them immediately. Some of these people, it's a good thing that guy's not around, but the people behind him with the messaging need to be addressed as well. I think just as almost as much. So
yeah, that guy who was who had been kind of vetting candidates, vetting nominees for him, that was found out to be basically panhandling for contracts. What was his name? Epstein, Barry Epstein or something like that.
Boris Epstein.
Boris, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wonder if he was one of the guys that maybe, I don't know. Not that the sheriff can necessarily pay Boris a lot of money for a contract, but I think those are the kind of things that can, we have to be grateful that stuff is coming out because it muddies the water, certainly.
Yeah.
I could tell you some stuff about that. I don't know how much dirt we want to get into here.
Well, one thing, Joe, I think we can believe and assume is that Trump has learned an awful lot from his first term. I continue to believe that he was a little bit politically naive in his first term because he's not a politician. And I'm not even sure he understood the level of depravity that exists in that town and in our government. But I think he does now. And I think he's a lot shrewder and a lot smarter than he was in his first term. And I rest better at night knowing that.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. And that's why they're really scared. And that's why, they're willing to do anything to get rid of this guy. And I had one guy tell me, it's impossible to protect anybody completely. It's just impossible. You can poison somebody, blow them up, nuke them, and so we got to pray for his protection, that, God intervene and protect him when the next time comes. By the way, did you hear about the second assassin? It came out that the Secret Service agent was like 5 feet away and missed him 6 times.
Yeah. What kind of shot training is that?
I would think a 6-year-old without training could have done better than that.
I've got an 11-year-old who could have done more damage with his BB gun.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. So again, it tells you there's some dark people in there. There's grifters that are making money. That's what I don't like. These grifters that are getting, nominated or whatever. I don't have a lot of faith in grifters because they grift. They're all about their own pocket themselves. We need people that in there that are like Trump. And I really believe Trump's not in there he's not in there to make a lot of money. He doesn't need it. And he didn't need to run again. He could have walked away. He says, well, they stole it. He knew right away he had to run again. And then they've done everything. Like I said, like a Shakespearean novel. This thing's unbelievable.
Maybe you'll be the one to write it, Joe.
Well, there's a thought. There you go. I'm going to have to work on my poetry a little bit. But,
yeah, and I'll send you some good quotes from historical figures that you'll have to put in there.
That'd be great. Like John Adams.
Yes, only the ones that remind me of you. Only the ones that remind me of you.
Here's one for you. Did you see Dan Scavino's tweet this weekend? It was a meme that said, "Here's to all the haters. Be patient. So much more is coming." I was just and it was like the meme of Leonardo DiCaprio toasting someone with a martini. I was just like, yes, bring that on.
It's great. It's
It's so great. I
great.
love the trolling. The
We've
trolling
we've
has
never
reached
had this
epic
before.
proportions.
Yeah. And it's great. It's great because they've owned social media. They've owned the media. And now all those entities are just getting crushed with the exception of Truth and Twitter.
Yeah. It's amazing, Joe, how they have absolutely no problem when it's our speech being suppressed. But then when there's
Right.
actually a level playing field where we can actually compete in what
Yeah.
approximates a real marketplace of ideas, like on X, somehow it's a major problem.
Right. And
You know.
and it's so important for us to kind of continue to state we are the massive majority. We're not just a majority, we are a massive majority. These are punks that are grifters and snakes and dishonest monsters and straight from hell, some of them. And we don't need to bow to them at all.
No.
They're a charade. They're built on lies, just like California's election results. Give me a break. Give me a break.
Yeah.
That you got 20% of your voter rolls that are illegals. Give me a break. I hope this post goes viral today because it's disgusting, and we need to continue to talk about this. That's the thing too. I think the GOP, these leadership that are rhinos, they want to bury this.
Mm-hmm.
They've been told, bury it. And here's something too that happens, and you don't hear these guys talk about it, but the GOP comes into these guys that lose and says, well, if you don't fight it, we will pay off your debt. If you do fight it, you're on your own. And that's how they get these people to just shut up and move on, because the debt, they've got a bunch of debt, and they don't want to have to pay it. And so it's sick. It's
These
evil.
people are supposed to be on our team, Joe.
Yeah.
These people are supposed to be on our team.
And they're not. And that's it. You're right. These are the people that get you more fired up than anything. The Liz
100%.
Cheneys that lie, the Dick Cheneys that lie, Lindsey Graham's, you're right. So yeah, we got to keep fighting. I mean, what you guys are doing, what's really neat is this is the answer. This is what we can do. This is it. We're finding out. And let me ask you guys, do you go to Fox News anymore for your news?
No. Mm-mm.
Chris, do you?
Joe, I have not watched Fox News since the night of the 2020 election.
Me too. I was so insulted by these guys.
When they called Arizona prematurely, and they did a number of other things. And I'm like, and Chris Wallace, I'll be honest with you, if I never see him again or hear his voice again, it'll be way too soon. No, I haven't. I take that back. I probably did watch Tucker Carlson a few times until he left Fox, but certainly not since then.
No, I'm with you, Chris. And maybe I watched him on election night. I didn't know where else to go.
Yeah.
But, clown show. Nobody's going there anymore. Nobody's going to any of the MSNBC. Their numbers are tanking. They're half of what they were, if even that. It's all deep state ran anyway. Same with the New York Times, Washington Post. We are the massive majority, and this is how we've won. We've got all these sites like this and the Gateway Pundit and all these great places now that people are going to, and we're winning because we got the truth on our side. Isn't that nice?
I love that.
Yeah.
And speaking of having the truth on our side, let's talk about our friend Tina Peters. We think about what Jenna Griswold has done. She's committed she's committed major crimes. She posted the usernames and passwords of all the Dominion machines to the Secretary of State website for weeks before she had them taken down. She knew they were posted there. She did nothing about it until she was confronted. We know Tina did nothing wrong, yet she's sitting in jail with a 9-year sentence. She just got denied bond on appeal by the leftist governor-appointed judge that's presiding over her case. And people around the country are calling for her release. I saw your post on joehoff.com about the people of Dallas doing a free Tina campaign with yellow ribbons, which is so beautiful. Do you have any insight on how she's doing and what remains for justice for her?
Well, she's in a desperate situation. I've heard, so she's been thrown in prison. She did nothing wrong. The judge was an absolute animal, just a I'll call him a pig. Just disgusting. If you watch any of that video of how he sentenced her and shamed her, this good woman did nothing wrong. They made up these charges against her, and then he sentenced her to the max on all this stuff. Outrageous. 9 years. Sent her away right away. She's sitting in prison now. I've heard that. They put her in a room with this one other person who's in there who just talks nonstop. So that's a punishment. And then they've accused her of things.
When you say, Joe, when you say talks nonstop, you're suggesting that she can't even speak openly about what's on her heart and on her mind because he's going to go rat her out and tell everybody what she says?
Well, perhaps, but the person just talks all the time. Now, if you've ever been around somebody that does that, it'd drive you crazy.
Yeah, okay.
So it's just a torture technique. Yeah. And then she basically sits in a room because that's where she feels safe. Some of the other, people there, they see that she's vulnerable, so they're taking advantage of that. She's in dire straits. And then this weekend, I got this text message from this writer out of Colorado who's communicated with her saying, "Hey, if I die, it's not because I'm depressed, but things are dire here." And she's obviously scared for her life. She shouldn't be there. She's a good person. And the thing is, they ran all this through the state courts. He's so evil.
That's exactly right, Jeff.
And you would know this, Chris.
I was going to say, so Trump can't pardon her.
No.
Because these are all state charges.
So what can we do, Chris? You're the attorney.
Well, I think public pressure, no question, has got to be consistently applied. We cannot let this go away. I think that in Colorado, this governor, I don't know what his level of popularity is, but if I were in Colorado, I would be doing major calls to action. I would be bombarding these people with this injustice and just constantly pressuring them to do what they need to do. But we can't let it go away.
But Chris, can Kash Patel as FBI director do something? Because her house was ransacked by the FBI. Now, maybe the FBI didn't press any formal charges, but is there any recourse since the FBI has had its fingers on her case for them to do something?
I don't think, but because she wasn't prosecuted under federal law, I don't think that Kash can do anything formally, but he's certainly, because the FBI did have involvement in the case early, he can certainly raise public awareness and exert public pressure from the FBI, and even Pam Bondi could make a statement about this. Look, the bottom line is this: whether you're a state prosecutor or a federal prosecutor, justice is justice, no matter where you are. And we all have an interest in justice. And I can't think of anything that begs for justice more than this case with Tina Peters, particularly, as you mentioned, Danielle, the totally disparate treatment that Griswold has received. Nothing.
Well, and can't the judge and the governor get investigated? I mean, they seem pretty ripe for investigation. Jenna Griswold could face federal investigation for her corruption, couldn't she?
She could. I think to the extent that election fraud goes to our fundamental constitutional right, it is a federal issue.
Yeah, and also there's whistleblower laws, aren't there, that would federally would protect her too. She's definitely a whistleblower in my mind. That's what she did. She said, "Hey, look, we kept a snapshot before they copied it or before they did their thing, and it doesn't agree with what's there afterwards." That's a whistleblower, and that's been totally ignored by the state court. I would think they could try to do something with that. I don't know. What do you think, Chris?
Oh, I think so. I believe that where there's a will, there is absolutely a way to get it done. And I just think we have to keep it in the forefront, keep talking about it.
Well, and go after these guys.
Yeah.
Go after them. Go after the judge. Go after the Secretary of State. Go after the governor. Go after the Attorney General. Go after the people that she worked with. We found out, I don't know if you saw this a week or so ago, that the people that Tina worked with were getting paid also by Dominion. And that was hid from Tina. These people were getting communications with Dominion voting machines up to at least 2019, maybe even into 2020. and they weren't sharing the same communications with Tina. So there's something going on there too. So and all that was hidden from Tina. She thinks she's going to go in and clean up the voting systems because she was complaining that you had to wait 3 hours to get your license. So she goes in for that, finds out this is also, overseeing the elections, had no clue how broken they were until she started looking into it.
Yeah.
Well, and that sounds like entrapment, doesn't it? If everybody knew but her, and then she's the one who does something about it. It seems like that's entrapment.
Yeah. The whole thing stinks. She's a great American and a great patriot. And I agree with you 100%, Joe. She does not belong where she is, for sure. I want to ask you my final question here, Joe, is I wanted to tell you that Danielle has publicly recommended you to be the chief auditor for Doge. And we can't think of anyone who would be any better. And so we're going to continue to encourage on our platforms Elon and Vivek to call you if they haven't yet.
Thanks, guys. No, appreciate it. That'd be an honor. I'd love to do some real audits on some of this stuff because clearly the audits and the investigations are they're cover-ups. They're not the real deal. And we gotta stop this. And this is really a big part of what we need to do moving forward is get real investigations and audits. No more of this protect the government workers and the deep state. We've got to shine light on all of this. There's so much corruption. So be honored. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. You have to let us know when you get the call.
I will.
Awesome. Well, Joe, how can people follow you on X and your website? Just give us the details for both of those, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So you can follow me at joehoff.com. That's probably the best place. I put articles up every day. I've got my books there listed where you can purchase them. And then I also put up my shows at the same site. And then at Twitter, I got realjoehoff.com. Had another account. They took it. They've never given it back. So
wow.
Trying to slowly, it's a real slow process for me. I think I'm really shadow banned. I'm telling you, I really think I'm shadow banned bad. After the 2020 election, this one group came out. They were praising themselves for having censored all these entities.
Yeah.
Number one was Gateway Pundit. By far, we were like twice as many as Breitbart, and I think most of those were mine. I was just dropping bombs on these animals and happy to do so. So I do think I get shadow banned, so I appreciate you following me.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll keep dropping those bombs, Joe. Drop them every day if you need to. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. We just always enjoy talking to you, and you're like-minded and a brother in spirit. So thank you so much for coming on. I hope you have a very Merry Christmas if we don't see you before then.
Thank you, guys. It's great seeing you, as always. Love what you do.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Bless you. Thanks for joining us today on The State of Freedom. Be sure and check out the show notes for this episode. You can always go there and find the calls to action and resources mentioned in the show, and you can find out more information about our advertisers there as well. If you want to learn more about us or support our work, visit freedomstate.us. To get involved with Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group, visit lacag.org. We'll see you next time. God bless.
You guys are great.